There. Good day to you. This is the Wavetable Live. We are back. It is Wednesday. It's 12 o'clock East time. I'm going to just move the little camera across just a little bit to get us a little bit better set. Welcome along. Streaming live on various channels. YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitch, Twitter, I believe. In fact, goodness me. Welcome along. This is, of course, Wavetable Live. Get myself in position, move myself down a little bit so the business end of things is more visible. This is our little 25, 30-minute kind of groove box session where we're building some stuff, sharing some stuff, hopefully learning some stuff. My name is Howard. I'm your intrepid host. A little bit disheveled today because our 3-month-old son has decided to have another growth spurt, which means he has been feeding a lot, which means he's been up in the middle of the night and I haven't had much sleep. So I haven't had my makeup looking a little bit. But regardless, the show must go on because it is that time. It's noon. It's the Wavetable Live, 3rd of November, 2021. All right, let's get right in. These sessions are about two things. The first thing is we're hoping to help you learn how to craft and share more compelling stories to build your business, your projects, your career, your community. We believe in stories as being magical, hugely powerful. So we want to help you craft and share more compelling stories. That's the first thing we're going to do. The second thing we do in these sessions, how you can design and deliver engaging workshops, conferences, courses, summits, get-togethers, whatever it is, other human interactions, whatever they may be. How do you make this stuff more engaging? How do you make people not want to fall asleep? So that is what we're doing. We do stories, we're doing experiences. Who on earth are we? You may be wondering. Well, this is Wavetable. We create unique experiences rooted in these things: learning, discovery, community, connection. That's what we're all about. We make these things. We build onboarding programs for companies. We make offsites. We do retreats. We build skill academies. We do workshops, summits, community programs, fellowships, content stuff, brand activations, anything you can think of that has stories, learning, and community at the center. That's what we're all about. We work with lots of different cities, creators, community, companies to build these things and make them magical. So that's the sales pitch. That's enough of that. We don't want any more of that junk in there. But if you do want to talk to us about anything that's on your mind, you can give me a holler. That's me. That's Howard. Howard at wavetable.net. Ho. All right. That's enough of that rubbish. Let's get on to the good stuff, the stuff that people are actually interested in, which is the business end of things, the workshop. All right. Today, we're going to do two things. We're going to do hot and cool, and we're going to do some Q&A. We have a little bit of chat. Can't hear me. Oh, dear. Someone can't hear me. Oh, dear. Need to get the microphone working properly. I might have to go to the Yente microphone. All right. There it is. Let's see if we can get this one up a bit closer. Hopefully that works. Fingers crossed that is working. Can't hear me, can't hear me. I really hope that works. It looks like on my end it is. It's one of the joys of being live. Ooh, let's see. Hopefully that works. Shout out to Robin for calling that out in the chat that you can't hear me. So hopefully you can hear me now, Robin. If you could let me know, that would be fabulous, because otherwise it's all a bit embarrassing. All right. On with the moves for today. Hot and cool. Hot and cool is a quick little sort of news roundup. Kind of like doing this, a couple of bits that we've noticed that we think are hot and cool in our world. Why hot and cool? What are you talking about, Howard? What are you on about? Hot and cool was coined by this guy, Marshall McLuhan. He talked about the idea of hot media and cool media. This is back in the 60s, I think. Two simple concepts, but hugely powerful with experience design and storytelling. He was talking about media, kind of magazines, TV, radio, film, that kind of thing. We think they're magical for other kind of work we're interested in. Hot media engages one sense completely, very restricted to time and place. So, for example, a movie, we're very engaged. It's one kind of medium that's hot. Cool, on the other hand, a bit more low def, but it's media that's engaging several senses less completely. There's more for the audience to explore. Combining these things, that's where the magic is when it comes to creating this stuff. And the audio is working, which is good to know. All right, awesome. Hot and cool. Hot, cool. This one's hot. MTV Down South in South Africa. We really love this. This is a show that's been on for like 10 years, but recently the London School of Tropical Medicine, I think, did a research study on it, and it was shown that young people in South Africa were twice as likely to get tested for HIV and AIDS because they watched the show. So after watching the show, they were twice as likely to get tested for HIV. One of the storylines in the show was all around this topic. And so this edutainment, this TV show that was sharing difficult, challenging topics in engaging and relevant ways, actually made a difference towards people going out and getting themselves tested. So we love this example of hot media in action to encourage learning and discovery and pushing forward important causes. That's a hot one for today. MTV Down South. All right. That's the hot. Let's get the cool one this time. Is one of our favorite things, Ableton. This is an awesome music creation software. There we go. It looks a little bit like that. They make a lot of great hardware and software products to create music. Really into this. They've been around a long time, but something they've done recently is they've been making some video content around teachers using in schools to do music. Music when I was at school was always like kind of just either banging on a keyboard or lots of sheet music, and wasn't really very interesting. Instead, with stuff like Ableton, very, very visual. You can get started really quickly. The software intuitive, very colorful. The awesome. Head over to the ableton.com website to check it out. So that is our hot and our cool. Our hot was the lovely story from MTV South Africa, and our cool is a bit of Ableton. So we're really into those two things. I will try and share them in the comments after today's episode. All right, let's get into this. This is the main chunkiness, the main meat of this sandwich, or the main cheese of this sandwich, depending on what you're into, or the salad, or whatever your favorite salad kind of filling is. Q&A time. All right. Today's Q&A comes from Amy, actually, for this. I think you might be tuned in. I've slightly tweaked the conversation we had, but this was the general line of inquiry. How do I structure and design a 90-minute client workshop without freaking out? This is a question we get a lot. So this is a question and a tension point I have dealt with many, many times. I was going to tackle this through doing some slides and talking through it, but about an hour, 2 hours ago, I decided we'd take a bit of risk. And so we're going to do it live with another camera, and I'm going to draw it out as we go. Hope this will work. So we're going to get straight into this. How do I structure and design a 90-minute client workshop without freaking out? If you want to play along, feel free. We're going to do this on 5 sheets of paper, I think. We'll see how we go. And we're going to switch to the other camera. So today's session is going to be, how do I design and structure a 90-minute session without freaking out? All right. Whoa, over to the live camera. There's my hand. Oh my goodness. All right, I'm going to make myself a bit smaller because you don't want my face in there too much. And we're going to go over to the 90-minute workshop special palette area. So let's get started. So we're going to create a 90-minute workshop in 5 sheets of paper. How do we design and run a client workshop without freaking out? All right. Here we go. Make sure this is looking good. I've got a lot of shadows there. Just going to tweak this up a bit. Oh, there we go. Yeah. All right. Make sure that's looking good. All right. So I've got this first sheet of paper. We're going to do 5 sheets of paper to try and create a 90-minute client workshop. This is going to be a 20-minute-ish workshop. I'm doing a live build of a 90-minute session using bits of paper on a live cam. Never done this, may not work. Last minute decision to do it this way. I think it's going to be fun. So let's see how we. All right. So this is going to be a 90-minute session. Now, if we did this properly, we'd probably be using like one of our learning experiences, canvases, something like that. We're not going to do that today. We're going to keep it pretty rough and ready, but hopefully this kind of way of drawing it out is going to be helpful. A couple of other caveats. I'm left-handed, really bad handwriting, really bad. So I'll do my best to make it legible. All right, let's get into it. So if we're doing a 90-minute session, we need some kind of topic to start with. And a couple of projects actually, I've been exploring at the moment, me and the crew, is around breaking into industries, breaking into different businesses, different sectors. So this one that I'm going to focus on because of my background is the music industry. I spent about 10 years in music myself. So the start of this one was breaking into the music industry. That's going to be our kind of overarching, like just starter kind of topic. We're going to drill into this in a bit more detail as we go. We're going to start there. So breaking into music industry. I did say my handwriting was really bad. There we go. Breaking into music industry. That's our start point. Okay. So before we get into actually building this workshop, we need to start with the who's it for. I got this at the top of the paper here. Who's it for? Now we need to know who our audience is before we can build anything. And this is a really common thing. People will just start by building stuff without really thinking, who's it for? So there's loads of stuff we can do around demographics, psychographics, stuff like that. A good start point, we get into like a lot of different heavier stuff on this, but a really good start point is thinking about where are they at? Where are they at? So this group, breaking into the music industry, this is for young people specifically. I know this much. So where they are at, where are they? Where are they in their careers? Where are they in their knowledge of this topic? Where are they in their expertise more specifically? With this group, we can say, where are they at is they're probably novices. They're breaking into an industry, so they're unlikely to know much about it. With your workshop, the where they are at, you might have a bunch of experts who want to become masters. You might have some intermediate people who want to get better and become maybe experts. Where are they at? We're starting with novices. This is our first question. Second question we can ask ourselves is, what are their unspoken objections to this workshop, this thing we're making for them? Unspoken objections. What I mean by this is, if they show up at our workshop, what are they not saying but are probably thinking? So this could be, I'm terrified about speaking in front of people, or this is too basic for me, or I don't know, what if they're all different to me and we don't get on, or I don't have time for this because I'm a CEO and I'm super busy. It could be any of these things. What are the unspoken objections that when they find out about this thing, either before or when they arrive or even maybe halfway through, what are their unspoken objections? We're putting these in because we can start to overcome these unspoken objections as we go. So let's say with this group, again, we would do this in much more detail in reality. So maybe customer interviews, maybe to our client, for example, if it's for a client. Maybe we've got a client advocate. It's always good with client stuff to ask about what are the unspoken objections for you, but also for the other people who are going to be in the room. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Unspoken objections with this group could be, let's say, this is too advanced, or could be this is too broad. Music industry could be too broad, so it could be too advanced, too broad. It could be don't want to speak in public. Those are a few. Don't want to speak. I need to get better with the zooming on the camera, but I'll fix that for next time. Hopefully you can still make this out. All right, unspoken objections. Relating to this is then, where's some tension? Tension. Now, I mentioned this as regards to the topic of client workshops. Now, this breaking into the music industry one, we're talking to some clients who are laying this on for young people. So we have a kind of double-ended thing here. There's two layers to this. There's always going to be some tension, probably around the objections, but maybe around other things too. So the tension with maybe a topic you're working on, if you're working with, say, founders or CEOs or something like that, tension could be time. It could be talking openly about topics you don't want to talk about. So again, this unspoken objective, like some tension points that we can then play with a bit in the session, or we can overcome through the things we're designing. Tension is a good thing to think about, particularly when you're doing stuff for clients, because often it would be stuff like bosses. What will my boss think of this? Or if the boss is in the room at the time with everybody everybody else, there can be tension there. So designing, relieve that tension is definitely a good idea. Tension, let's think about that. Right, next, we've got the who's it for. Again, we could spend way time with this, but as a simple thing, where are they at? Unspoken objections, tension. We might just want the mix of the group. So again, we might have where they are at might be mixed. So that could be age, expertise, it could be time, it could be department, it could be all kinds of stuff. So the blend and the mix of the group, the makeup of the group, we're thinking about both the individual, but then also the group. So those are a few things to think about with the who's it for. All right, that's 5 minutes. So we're going to keep going. The other thing I wanted to add here is the what. So start with the who, let's go with the what. And see if just where the paper is, make sure that it's nice and centered. There we go. The what. All right, so what's it for? This is what's our topic probably to start with, like what's it for? But there's more to this than that. We want to think about the what's it for. It's worth thinking about like what type of thing are we doing here? Like what is this for? Is it for skills? Is it for inspiration? Is it for something else? Is it for connection? Is it for understanding each other? What is it for? Before we get into our topic, we actually think about our flavor. I talk about this quite a lot. Flavor of workshop. Generally, there are 3. Strategy, can't spell. Alignment. Education. And then arguably there's a 4th one, which is quite similar to alignment, but a little different, which I'm just going to call vibes. Vibes. So the what's it for, it's worth thinking about our topic. But before that, like what is this thing even going to be? What flavor of workshop is it? So this session, breaking into the music industry, is probably going to be education. Might be some strategy, but more likely a strategy workshop is like getting to an insight of some sort. And we're probably going to be doing that as a group, whereas this one's more around for individuals specifically. So each person is going to get their own kind of insight rather than a strategy as a whole. So I'm going to say this one is mainly education. There's always going to be some vibes. Vibes workshops are more just like connection, alignment. Alignment workshops are very specific around maybe relieving tension, dealing with issues, mediation, things like that. Strategy could be creating a plan for the business, creating a new product idea, something like that. What I'm going to say is like mainly education with like a little bit of strategy around it. And always we want to have, some vibes. I'm just going to do a kind of spiky thing around that. But this one is mainly an educational workshop. So we know, okay, we're going to be leading with educational content in this workshop. That's the what. So the what's it for is education. This sounds obvious, but it is so important to think about, because if we get this wrong and we end up wandering off into a different flavor, we can end up with loads of problems. Okay, another thing to think about before we get into our topic is actually, I mentioned this before, the shadow. What do I mean by the shadow? The shadow is the shadow brief in this case. So the shadow brief, if we're dealing with a client workshop, will often have a shadow brief. So there's the brief on the surface of here's what we want this workshop to be, but there's probably a shadow brief going on. And if we're working with clients, that shadow brief could be around what will I tell my boss? Or other tension, going back to tension in our team. Like what's the underlying brief underneath the presenting brief? There'll probably be a shadow brief of some sort. So for example, breaking into the music industry, maybe if we're running this for a big music company, maybe they've got a diversity challenge, for example. So the shadow brief is like, we need to think about how we design for diversity. Maybe that's kind of not been voiced particularly clearly. It might not be an objection, but it's more of a shadow brief. Maybe it is, this is part of a bigger program that we want to build, or we want to get signed off by the bosses. So maybe we need to sort of speak to that a little bit. So this one, we don't really have that much of a issue with this one, but maybe for you, you might have like a shadow brief that the client is really thinking about. So the agenda that's underneath the one. Okay, well, let's get into topic. So topic, mine was breaking into the music industry. Now that does work as a topic, but it is broad, really broad. I would suggest with topics, try and niche them down. So this topic, and we're going to try and chop it back. So one way of doing this, let's try and get more specific with the topic. We've got music industry, breaking into. I'm going to this down to live industry, because that gets rid of record labels, it gets rid of publishing. It's down to live music industry. So maybe we're talking about promoters or festivals or talent agents, that kind of thing. Live music industry, because we've only got one workshop. It's only 90 minutes. We're not going to be able to do breaking into the music industry is massive, and we will get overwhelmed if we try and design for that. So instead, let's do it much more specific. Live music industry. Well, that also feels really broad. Breaking into the live music industry is still quite big. I'm going to call this breaking into, or not even say live music industry entry points. So breaking into is a slightly different way of talking about it, but like this is entry points. So we're going to deal specifically with the entry points in 2022. That says that we're not going to do much past stuff. We're going to be very focused on like trends and like the right now. So quickly, just in 20 seconds, I've taken us from breaking into the music industry into live music industry entry points in 2022. That's a bit of a mouthful maybe, but way tighter. And it makes it easier for us to build for. We were going to be building a bunch of workshops around breaking into the music industry. We would do this, 1, 2, 3, 4 times and have different around this. But we're going to go this singular one for now. Live music entry points in 2022. That's our what. We've got our who, so we know they're novices. They maybe have some unspoken objections. We know about the mix of the group perhaps. We know it's an education workshop. We need to have vibes, particularly maybe relating to the I'm not sure if I want to speak up. We might not have like inclusive vibes, like maybe a very sort of safe space. There's a bit of strategy. Don't think we've got a shadow brief, but we do have this much more specific topic. Awesome sauce. All right. There we go. That's we're about 7-8 minutes in. We're going to keep it moving. That's the who and the what. This one's off the page. This one's going. Here we go. Sheet number 2. All right. We're going to continue. Let's get into outcomes. Any workshop has outcomes, whether it's strategy, whether it's alignment, whether it's education, it's going to have outcomes. For this one, we're going to have 3. I would always suggest having no more than 3 outcomes for a workshop. Anymore, it's really hard to meet them all, and you'll end up rushing, and you'll end up kind of feeling the panic and the freaking out, which is what this session's all about. We don't want to avoid the freak out. So our outcomes. How do we get to outcomes? Very simple way of doing it. Here's a simple model. We can 3 max. Action, verb. I'll talk about that in a second. 1 sentence each. Okay. And then we can apply this very simple model. Explain, apply, create. So coming up with this stuff can feel hard, but what I'm doing here makes it a little bit easier for us. These are 3 kind of buckets of outcomes. The other way of thinking about outcomes, very simply, is what people can do, and this gets these action verbs over here, what they can do they couldn't do before. So at the end of the session, you will be able to ... whatever that is. For our session, we're doing one on live music entry points in 2022. I'm actually going to leave that up here. I'll just fold it up, stick it up here, see if this works. That doesn't work. I'm just going to tear it off. Just to remind me, put water bottle on there just to hold it down. There we go. Live music entry points in 2022. For this one, we are going to go with 3 learning outcomes. 3. So I'm going to pick either something people can explain, they can apply, create. You could pick one from each of these buckets, 1, 2, 3. You don't have to, but it can be helpful. So I'm thinking for this one, what do we want them to do with regards to being able to do something? So we're hoping perhaps maybe they can describe key parts of the live industry. Again, we're workshopping this. This is a first attempt. We'll go back and we'll talk to our client about it. We might talk to our team. We'll probably refine them ourselves. Here's a first version. Number 1, describe key parts of the live industry. That's our explain, right? We can, after this, you could explain key parts of the live industry because you need to know about the entry points. Maybe you can describe the key parts of the live industry, what they are. I know what a talent agent is. I can describe what a promoter is and so on. Second one, we're going to go with an apply one. This one, I think it's going to be discover the part, my goodness, my handwriting, the part of the industry that fits you best. Discover. This one's cool. This was like kind of an apply one. So discover the part of the industry, because we want people to go away like with an entry point, them to be able to feel, okay, I can sort of move on somewhere, right? I can get further. I've moved on, I've made progress. So maybe if they found one part, maybe two parts of the industry that fit them or feel good, maybe that's a nice outcome for us. Number 3, and then we're going to do that within the session, in fact. And so, or afterwards, they would be able to go afterwards, you'll be able to discover, use a model perhaps, or maybe some kind of critical thinking. Thirdly, I'm going to say you'll be able to write your one-line pitch. So maybe this is a one-line email or a bit of forwardable info to send to someone, or a way you'd introduce yourself at an event or something like that. So that's how create. You could write a one-liner about, I'm Howard and I want to get into talent agencies because blah, 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 blah. So we've got our 3 learning outcomes. Describe key parts of the industry. Discover the part of the industry that fits you best. Third, write your one-line pitch. Now, this already feels like it might be a bit chunky for a 90-minute workshop. We'll see. But again, it's a start point. We've got our 3 outcomes. They fit our topic. They fit the group and the level that they're at. They're novices. And we're hoping to help them find entry points into the industry. Again, actually, with our topic up here, we probably change that and make that even an action verb as well. So we might have how to find or discover or new entry points for live music in 2022, or all of, whatever it would be, something a little bit more attractive, but also more action orientated. So we might add a verb up here as well for the session itself. And again, we can play going back and forth with these. All right, so we've got some learning outcomes. Verb in each, and we've got 1 sentence for each. Sweet. All right, so those are our outcomes. 12:27. All right, doing all right for time. And try and do this in 25 minutes. Tricky brief. Outline. Let's move in. So we've got a topic. We've got our people. We've got our outcomes. We're going to go into outline. Now, there's a load of ways we can come at this. So when it comes to thinking about how we outline it, I like to start with story. And what I mean by story maybe is more narrative than story, in fact. So we're thinking about the narrative. Like, what is the narrative of this session? What do we want to happen? What do we want people to feel? What's the groove? What's the arc? What occurs? So we can almost think like, a story might look, whoa, like this. This could be the emotional arc of it, where it's, a high point maybe at the beginning, and then we might have some challenging stuff here. We might have a breakthrough moment here. We might have, another little challenge point, or maybe I'm not sure what to do. And then hopefully we'll have some resolution at the end, perhaps. So I find this really interesting as a way to start designing this, thinking about what's the narrative of this session. We won't want it to just be like plain sailing, like one kind of line across. That's not going to be very exciting. We need to have some ups and downs. Humans love stories. So taking stories into our session can be really powerful. And what kind of story is this? What kind of narrative is this? Is it overcoming a challenge? Is it maybe it's a quest? Is it a journey of discovery? There's many different stories. We have a bunch of storytelling stuff on the Wavetable website and on our YouTube, if you want to have a look, plug. There are many different story types, but I find picking one sort of story narrative can be really nice as a good start point for what our outline is. Now, we haven't got anything down on like how we're building the workshop yet. We're almost just thinking about what do we want this to feel like? Because workshops are all about how people learn and what they learn, but they're also about how they feel. And a great way of getting feeling in there is through adding story. So we need some story, we need some narrative, we need some challenge points, some tension. So this might be a challenge. This might be options, for example, or I'm not sure what to do. This could be magic, the magic moment or the magic tool that someone finds, for example. And again, we can change this as we go. Let's see how things shake up. This is just our first go at it. So this is our outline. We're going to start with actually our narrative outline. Once we've done that, we can start actually getting a bit more specific on what's happening. So we can maybe reference our story graph here, and we can actually get into something a bit more specific. So I'm going to switch paper. So I've got a bit more room. Here we go. On to sheet number 3. I'm hoping to get this done in 5 sheets. We're going to see. I don't want to waste too much paper because, well, it is COP26, and frankly, we could all do with being a little bit better at saving things. All right, outline continued. Okay, there are loads of ways you can do this again, but here's one way to get started. So I like to have a nice, simple outline. This is 90 minutes. We're going to need a break somewhere. I actually want to start with the break. We need to do a break probably in the middle. Now, you can go 90 with no break. I think it's a push. I think for this audience, younger audience, they're tired, probably got quite a low attention span. We're going to put a break pretty much slap in the middle. We're going to have some intro time. We've got 90 minutes. We're going to have some intro here. We need something to introduce. We're going to need something at the end. And using our magic of 3, we're probably going to have 3 pieces. So with your outline, it won't always connect to the outcome specifically. You won't do outcome 1, outcome 2, outcome 3. You might do, but you'll probably end up blending them a little bit. But look, for now, let's do it simply like that as our first attempt at an outline, because we've got our describe. So let's do like key parts. Part 1. Part 2, which is going down here. This is discover the part that fits you best. Discover what fits. Part 3, right pitch. So we can already see pretty quickly. We've got, I need to move this up, sorry. Let's get this out of the way. All right, there we go. We can already see intro, summary, 3 parts, break. If we even start with like 5 minutes for an intro, 5 minutes for a summary, 5 minutes for a break, 5, 5, 5, that's already 15. So we've started with 90. We've got 15 here. Even Howard knows that's 75. So we're already down to 75 minutes, and we've got 3 things to cover. So if you do the maths, that's 25 minutes max for each thing. Now, we might obviously have some wiggle room. Something might be 40. We might drop something out. But we can see very quickly 90 minutes goes fast. And that's with just 5 for these things. You know, we might want 10 for the break. We might want 10 for a wrap-up summary thing, whatever it is. So very, very quickly, we can start outlining this. Now, this is super simple, but let's start adding a bit more to it. Thinking about one of our outcomes that matters most. So I like to look at, okay, we've got 3, but like, what's the thing that really feels most important? Now, the key parts matter, but is that something that is like magical, transformative for this group? I don't think it is. Discovering what fits, that feels more magical. That feels like something where there could be a breakthrough there. There could be a magic moment. This is a workshop where we're building stuff. Maybe that could be the magic moment. Write a 1-line pitch. That could be magical, but I wonder if that could be done elsewhere. Maybe that could be done afterwards. Maybe we could do a follow-up session, maybe do office hours, coaching sessions, whatever. The discover bit this one feels more magical. So I'm going to give this one a bit more weight. I'm going to give this one a little bit more space. And probably what we'll do here is we might create a bit of what I like to call cornerstone content or cornerstone activity around this. So this will be our cornerstone. So I think actually most of our session is going to be around this discover what fits thing. I think that one's probably where the magic will happen. So we might want to give this one actually a little more time, and it's going to go around the break. So we might actually mean that our pitch might condense a bit. So we can already see maybe our key parts might be, I don't know, 15, 20, let's say 20. If we're allowing maybe 20 for our pitch, maybe. We've got 35 for this, perhaps. And again, this is our first outline. We can already see this is starting to shifty around a bit. If we want something that's got a hands-on activity, we might just set it up. We might have some resources, might be some digital stuff. We're going to need to give it a bit of time. So this one's probably at 35. Next, we can drill into each of these bits and start thinking about adding content, adding ideas into this, adding some content, adding some stuff that's going on. Really simple way of doing this. I'm going to add this on the same sheet. I might use a different color actually for this one. Really simple little model that I like to use here is this little diamond, open, explore, close. Now you could do this for your whole session. You could do it for a short bit. You could do it for even a tiny chunk. Let's say our 20-minute key parts of the industry. Let's say we're talking about that. It's 20 minutes. Let's say we've got 5 minutes of opening stuff, introducing this topic. We might have 10 minutes of exploration where the group maybe talk about it or work with it. And then we've got 5 minutes of kind of summing up the concepts we talked about. For this intro bit, I wonder if it might actually be more like 10, 5, 5. It might be a very quick explore the key parts of the industry, and probably our opening bit, like our content delivery stuff, might need a little bit more time. But the point is we can use this open, explore, close. How do we open to the topic? How do we help people explore the topic? How do we close off the topic? This is a really nice, simple model to use with any kind of session that we're building. Any kind of chunk of a session actually is really helpful. So with this one, maybe we will do this, open, explore, close. For our key parts, we might think, okay, 10 minutes of content, like maybe some slides, some lecture stuff, some other bits, something for them to explore, and then something to close it off. Now, very quickly, we can start to see what we could put in here. So for this one, maybe we might have the industry breakdown. You can imagine maybe that's some graphs, maybe it's some slides. I don't think it's probably going to be a video. It might be, but it could be images. Thinking about we're trying to show key parts of an industry. So maybe that's just going to be some lecture content. We can transfer that information to people quite quickly. And explore here, maybe this is some kind of conversation. But given that we might think our group are a bit nervous about speaking up, maybe it is a worksheet, or maybe it's a pair conversation. I'm more minded to go with the worksheet here because it's a little more, it's active, but it's not too active because we're just warming up. In our first bit, probably want to do like a worksheet or something that people can maybe fill in, complete. Maybe they can draw something like that that's a little bit less high stakes for a group that don't know each other, or maybe they don't know us very well. So I'd start with something a little bit lighter. And then maybe for our close, we might have some share back. So we might talk about it. We might have a little mini showcase, and we probably will have a summary. So very, very quickly for this first bit, you can see we've got opening up with 10 minutes of a breakdown of the key parts of the industry. We're going to have like a 5 minute. It's going to be pretty quick. So it's just going to be like draw a picture or like draw maybe a map or something like that. We might be drawing a little Venn diagram, something really simple. And because we've only got a few minutes for it, we can probably think, okay, we're probably going to need to like provide something for people. So we want to give them maybe a template that's super quick, super easy, like one slide, one JPEG, one drawing, something that's really, really fast and easy to get going. So that's example for part one. Now we're a little bit low on time today, so I don't want to get into parts 2 and 3, but hopefully this gives you a bit of a flavor of how we can start quickly outlining. So I might start filling in all of these parts. I'd start moving breakdowns of the graph, slides, images, all of this content stuff up in here. So we might have a pillar which is, breakdown slide, each element, worksheet. So really quickly, we've got, 3, 4, 5 things, maybe max for this section, 20 minutes. We can already see, okay, we can start to feel, does this fit into 20 minutes or not? All right, we've only got a few minutes left. So I'm going to really quickly jump into some extra stuff. We're going to talk about some development and delivery bits before we wrap today, because speaking of time, there isn't enough. All right, and we've never done this kind of crazy freestyle drawing thing before. So we're going to try and wrap it up in a few, because frankly, I've got to go get some lunch in a minute. So that's a good way we can do our outline. We can start adding content in here. We can start kind of developing out all the stuff that we want to go in our workshop. We can start thinking about formats as well, Q&As, worksheets, hands-ons, all that kind of thing. This is a really good way of us breaking it down and structuring it in a way that's clear. Let's talk a bit about delivery just before we wrap, because it was all around how do I design and deliver something. So delivery. Few things. Number one, plan B. We've got all our stuff in our outline. We always want to have a plan B for anything tricky. So let's say, for example, we were doing a big group or a multi-group conversation. We might want facilitators for that. but that's plan A. What if we don't have enough facilitators? What if one of them calls in sick? We need to be able to do this as a bigger group, or even plan C, a single group. So let's say you were planning to do it in threes, but then you can't do threes for some reason. You've got the wrong amount. Make sure it's available to work in fours. So groups of 3 would be plan A. Plan B would be groups of 4. And you'd need to have a little adjustment. What's different? What's different about the 4s to the 3s? So plan A would be our groups of 3. Plan B might be, okay, if it doesn't work, we can do a group of 4. Here's one thing that we need to change in our design to make sure this works. So we can drop back to plan B quickly. So before your delivery, I would strongly suggest always thinking about a plan B for anything that's complicated or could go wrong, because a lot of stuff could go wrong. It's possible. Those are a couple of really important things to think about, the plan B and also the plan C. Before you deliver the session, you need to have a backup because things don't work because we're live. You need to have a backup plan. Next thing, couple of quick delivery tips. The intro. 2 parts to an intro. Credibility, humanity. This one, most people are really good at. Hi, I'm Howard. I've done workshops for company name, company name, company name, company name. I've got a coaching certification. I've done this, I've done that, I've done this, blah, 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 blah. That's cool. That's great. Really important. But we also need this bit. If you're running a client workshop, they might know you, they might not. They're showing up off the back of another meeting, off some trouble thing they had to troubleshoot, off being tired, off whatever it is. We need some humanity to bring the vibes. So you want to add something that gives some humanity. It doesn't need to be your life story. It can just be something light. It could just be something that's relatable for the group. This only needs to be 1 minute. But having this intro down, like a good, strong intro that has a feeling of credibility for you and why you're strong and why they should trust you, because that will build trust and goodwill, but also some humanity so you're not just a robot. So they actually feel like, this is someone that I want to spend time with. I want to spend 90 minutes with this person. That too is super, super important. So we want to have credibility and humanity. I'm going to scale myself up. I'm feeling a bit small. Let's go a bit bigger, a little bit more Howard for your dollar. All right. So that's one quick tip on delivery, getting your intro down really well. Last couple of things, because we're overrunning today. Transitions over content. People ask a lot, how do I do this without freaking out? It sounds counterintuitive. Focus on the transitions rather than the content. So rather than trying to remember all the content, just remember how you get from one thing to another. Let's go back to our story. You know, these are going to be like little scenes, right? If you watch a movie or a TV show and the transitions or the continuity breaks, it feels really jarring and it feels really strange because we've lost the track of the story. If you focus actually on these little transition points here, more than the content itself, it's amazing how the groove and the vibe can still feel good regardless. So instead of trying to rehearse the whole thing, I would suggest plan and rehearse your transitions more. Last thing, we're doing a client workshop without freaking out. Well, last couple, go slow. Go slower than you think you should be. Speak a little slower than you think you need to. If you need to go back to your outline and actually allow a little bit of time for it being slower, that's fine. It might mean you need to trim this last bit to give yourself more space. That's the overbuilding thing there. So maybe we completely lose that and say that's going to be a resource that we're going to share that you can do afterwards, or we'll do it in the next session. That then gives us 20 minutes spare. We can go a little slower. We'll feel less panicked. We'll fit everything in. We've got more space for questions. I think probably with this workshop, I'd probably ditch this bit. I think it's too much to squeeze in. All right, go slow. Last couple of things. First 15. All right, we want to get people doing stuff in the first 15 minutes. We do not want to just talk at them for ages. I have a rule with online stuff. Have people change the format every 15 minutes. So change what you're doing every 15 minutes, change the state, change the vibe, change the format. In the first 15, you want to get people doing stuff. This does not necessarily mean goofy icebreakers, because for some groups, they ain't going to want to do it at all. But have them do something. It could just be draw something on this Venn diagram. You know, where are you on the Venn diagram? Do it yourself. Put something in the chat about what you have for breakfast, whatever. Get them doing something in the first 15. All right, last one, then I'm going to leave you because it's been a 45-minute session today. Finish strong. Like with any story, Some movies are brilliant that finish where you have no idea what's going on. Christopher Nolan does this sometimes. You're like, what? It feels the cliff. It feels kind of weird, but they're amazing, but they can feel really kind of weird as well. This is risky with workshops. We're probably not Christopher Nolan, let's be honest. We do want to finish strong. We want to finish on a high. So find a way to finish on a high. Really simple way of finishing on a high is actually just to reiterate what we did. So go back to our 3 learning outcomes. Hey, now you can describe parts of the industry using this thing. Hopefully now you discovered your path, the path that works for you. Maybe you get people to share that. And then maybe if we had our one-line pitch, maybe we talk about the one-line pitch a little bit as well. Finishing strong, finishing with good vibes, getting people excited. That is the name of the game. Finishing strong matters so much. The start and finish are super, super important. People really underestimate that. So delivery, have a plan B before you get into it. Number 1, make your intro strong, but make it credibility and humanity. Focus on transitions above content. This sounds counterintuitive, but it will help you, honestly, because if you're trying to remember everything, you're more likely to freak out. Go slower than you think you should, because that's probably about the right speed. I've probably gone a little bit too quick today. First 15, get people doing something. And finally, finish strong. Yeah. All right. Speaking of finishing strongly, that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sheets of paper. How to build a 90-minute workshop using 5 sheets of paper. That is today's Wavetable live session. Thank you for joining us. Wherever you are in the world, it's time to sign off. Hopefully this was helpful. You can use 5 sheets of paper just to create your own 90-minute session for any audience. It's magical. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time with another 45-minute-ish, maybe 30-minute, I don't know, let's see how we go, thing. You can send us questions to howard@wavetable.net. You can hit us up. Let us know what you're doing. Here's the bits there, howard@wavetable.net. Thanks for tuning in. That's what it's time. I'm going to go get some lunch. We'll see you around. All right. Be good.